Hello, girls. I'm making a video on how to calculate the limiting reactant and the theoretical yield. So the question is a reaction between 11.80 grams of nickel with 3.65 grams of hydrochloric acid produces 5.50 grams of nickel 2 chloride according to the following equation. Calculate the mass of nickel 2 chloride that should be produced by the reaction. The equation will be given to you. Now, the formulas that you will use are the mole, the formula for calculating the mole, and the reacting ratio is equals to actual mole divided by the equation mole. Now remember, they have asked you to calculate the mass of nickel 2 chloride that should be produced. Should. Now this term should tell you that they are asking about the theoretical yield. And as I have told you, rule number one, when you have to find the theoretical yield, to be able to find the amount of theoretical yield, you need to know the limiting reactant. If they haven't told you which is the limiting reactant and which is the excess, then your first step should be to calculate the limiting reactant if it is not given to you. Okay? So now this is the table that I have told you that you will use to calculate the limiting reactant. So the mass of nickel given to you in the question is 11.80 divided by the molar mass of nickel, which is 58.71 from the periodic table, and the answer you get is 0.201 moles. Similarly, the mass of HCl given to you in the question is 3.65. You will divide it by the molar mass of HCl, which is given to you in the question, which is 36.45 from the periodic table, and the answer you get here is 0.100 moles. Now that we have changed the mass into moles, we will move on to the second step of dividing this by the equation. So by the nickel, the coefficient of the nickel in the equation was 1. So we will divide it by 1 and we will get 0.201. And the reacting ratio is actual mole divided by the equation mole. So the coefficient present before HCl is 2. Then so we will divide this by 2 and the answer we get is 0.0500. Now that we have got this, you will look at which of these two is the smaller of the two numbers, and you can see that this is smaller, so that means this is the limiting reactant. Okay, this is the limiting reactant and this is the excess. Now that we have calculated the limiting reactant, we have found out the limiting reactant, the next step, which is step number 2, is to find out the amount of nickel 2 chloride produced by comparing it with the HCl, which is the limiting. Okay, so again we will look at the equation, and equation given to us was 2HCl gives you NiCl2 plus H2. So we will compare the coefficient present before Ni. These are the coefficients. NiCl2, the coefficient is 1. The coefficient present between HCl is 2. And then in the table, the number of moles we calculated of HCl was 0.100, and this we have to find out. Okay, so we cross multiply and the answer we get here is 0.0500 moles of nickel chloride. Okay, this we have got. We have calculated the moles. Now, another thing that you need to remember is that the theoretical yield of any product should always be in grams. Theoretical yield should be in grams. You need to remember that. So if it is moles, then you need to convert it to grams by using this formula. Okay, so then This is the mole of nickel 2 chloride. They have asked us to calculate the mass, so we will multiply the mole of nickel chloride by the molar mass of nickel 2 chloride from the periodic table, which you will find out is 130. You multiply and this gives you 6.50 grams of nickel 2 chloride. So this is the mass of nickel 2 chloride.